get our Monday OTA news and notes from 97.3 ESPN.com's John McMullen, and he joins us now as the Eagles at the NovaCare Center. Some interesting takes today and a little bit of an injury to kind of discuss with John and some other NFL news and notes here. And it's brought to you by BMW of Atlantic City. The ultimate driving experience is closer than you think at BMWofAtlanticCity.com, just off exit 37 on the Garden State Parkway. All right, Johnny, how are you, pal?
Doing well. I'm glad to hear you guys got wet because I got wet, so I feel that's just fair.
Yes, it's fair. And did you get yelled at today?
I did not. So I got through practice. I did get a Carson Wentz errant pass into the thigh, so I have that today.
So does he have a little bit more zip on the fastball? Can you verify that with a clean hit of the thigh?
Yeah, it didn't feel great. But I shook it off. I no-sold it.
Yeah. Talk about Carson Wentz, because he was kind of the topic of conversation, with Frank Reich today. And I'm interested to get Frank's, assessment of his second-year quarterback. It seems that, he was asked about his release and how he's working with the new receivers. I was following you guys on Twitter today. It seemed that Wentz and Torrey Smith had a nice rapport going in the early going.
Yeah, they did. I think this was the best Torrey's looked since, at least at the practices that we've gotten to observe. And I think there was also some hookups later with Alshon Jeffrey, so that's a positive because those are going to be the two guys, obviously. And Jordan Matthews wasn't there again because of his knee tendonitis, so it was Nelson Aguilar in the slot. And it was up and down, I think. Late in the practice specifically, there were 2 interceptions from Carson, so I think that tempered some of the enthusiasm. But, for a whole, as far as Frank is concerned, I think there is continued concern over Carson Wentz's mechanics, and you have that sort of, I don't want to call it a controversy, but a little bit of blip that claimed Doug Peterson might have been upset that he went to work with other coaches on his downtime, and Frank kind of downplayed that and explained the CBA, the collective bargaining agreement, as I've tried to do on the show a number of times. If you're a good player in the NFL today, you have to go find private coaching because you're not allowed to spend nearly as much time at the facility. So as I said before, that's a positive that Carson did that. And I think the Eagles feel that way, and Frank sort of backed that up today.
I want to ask you about that, John, because, as you said, the new CBA, you say you almost have to get a private coach. Is it illegal then for the team to maybe hire a guy that or endorse a guy maybe, or suggest that you work with a certain guy so that they at least feel like you're with a guy that they, approve of?
Yeah, they can sort of wink it. They can't hire anybody. They can't do anything of that nature because the organization can't be involved. But look, Tom House and Adam, I can't pronounce his last name, so I don't want to butcher it, but they're both ex-Major League pitchers. They do. Thank you, Peter. And they're both well-known in this sport. They are sort of the mechanics gurus. And, hey, I said Tom Brady goes to them. So if they're good enough for Tom Brady, they're good enough for Carson Wentz. So these are the best guys in the industry. It's not like he's going out to a bunch of fly-by-night guys who nobody knows about. By and large, they've had a ton of success. And as I said, it's a positive that he went and seek these guys out and went to work with them.
So Carson Wentz, a big topic of the conversation today, John McMullen, but with Frank Reich, the offensive coordinator, of course, there were some other topics that they addressed as well, including at the wideout position. What comments or what impressions did Frank Reich have about, for example, like DGB? Because I know we all think that DGB, the numbers say that he's on his way out, but Frank Reich may not feel that way.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's Frank's personality. He tends to talk up players, and understandably so. And I think he tried to do that with the question about Dorial Green-Beckham because, hey, we all see the numbers. We all see the landscape for him, and it doesn't look good. I think it's interesting because he definitely had his best practice today, caught a number of slants with the second team, and started looking like the bigger-bodied receiver that he is. But I just think it's going to be difficult for him. No matter what Frank Reich says in early June, you look at the numbers, and unless another domino falls that we don't foresee, like a Jordan Matthews trade or something of that nature, it's going to be very, very difficult for him to make this team, barring injury, of course. But that we can say that about every position. It's if you look at Jeffrey and Smith and Matthews and Mac Hollins, those guys are gimmies. And Nelson Aguilar is probably a gimme. And then you start even talking about Shelton Gibson, who seems to have had a bit of a slow start, so I wouldn't put him in that gimme category. But you can see the number of names ahead of DGB on the depth chart. It obviously doesn't look good.
And then I know that when Frank Reich was asked about the off season and how they addressed the offense and some of the moves that they made, he got a little emerald on you. What was the chef terms coming in, or why did cooking terms come into a football?
Yeah, he went pretty far with the the ingredients, and you have some new ingredients and you have the ones you like, and you try to put together something that's really, really good. So he did go a bit of emerald, but he didn't go the BAM with it, so I guess he left that out. But yeah, I mean, look, this team has added a lot of bodies on the offensive side of the ball to skill positions, and one of the major things I think you have to watch as we move forward is chemistry, because it generally takes a while to get used to new teammates, especially with Carson throwing them the football. So, the first team reps have basically all been, there's been no mixing and matching. A lot of times at this time of the year, you'll see coaches just rotate guys in and out to get as many reps as possible. But the first team has basically been Alshon Jeffrey, Torrey Smith, and if Jordan's there, Jordan, if not, Nelson Aguilar, and that's it. Nobody else is mixing in, and it's pretty clear why they want to get that rapport going with Carson Wentz, and they want to get him as much time with his new receivers as possible. And I think that's the right way to go about it, because those are the guys you're going to count on.
John McMullen's with us, Eagles OTAs. Frank Reich spoke today, so we're focusing in on the offense here. And, he to go on the cooking illustration, he talked about adding more 2 running back sets because of the personnel they have. He talked a little bit more about Donnell Pumphrey, but he kind of said, we can do more with the running backs that we have here. So it's obvious that they think the personnel they have allows them to be more creative.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, as you mentioned, they seem to like Donnell Pumphrey a lot, and the one thing that they always talk about is his ability as a receiver, which is a little surprising because he didn't catch the football all that much in college, mainly because he was running it all the time. So he seems to be a natural receiver. Obviously, he's a tremendous athlete. So what they've been doing is flexing him outside a lot, sort of in the slot, and moving him around. So when you talk about 2 back sets, I'm not necessarily going to say the traditional thing you think about is obviously running back, fullback, 2 guys in the backfield. I don't think you're going to be seeing a lot of that, but you might be seeing a lot of, say, LeGarrette Blount in the backfield, who missed practice today, was sick again, and then Darren Sproles and maybe even Donnell Pumphrey split out as a receiver. I think maybe you'll see a little more of that. But as far as 2 backs in the backfield, I just think this is an 11 personnel team, and more often than not, they're going to have 3 receivers on the field.
Yeah, and we know they have a lot of new weapons. We don't know how good they're going to be, but we think they're all upgraded. But he also, I thought his talk about the offensive line really gives you an indication of what they think of the line. He said, we think we have two of the best tackles, but he said, we think our guards, our backup guards, can start at a lot of places. So it sounds like the Eagles are telling you something that you have echoed a lot, that this offensive line is pretty darn good. But, the overview he gave of the line was pretty positive.
Yeah, as you mentioned, he said our backup guards can start most places in the NFL. That's how they feel about what they built on the interior, especially of the offensive line. And there's a lot of guys who can play. I think that's a little hyperbole to say that the backups would start most places, but, hey, they're pretty good, and they're really good as backups. And it was interesting because what I mentioned about the receivers, and there's no rotating in, and it's always Jeffrey and Smith, they started rotating in a lot of those interior offensive linemen with the first team. Alan Barber got a lot of looks at left guard today, back with the first team. Sayamalu had been running with the first team. Now, he still got first-team reps as well. They had Stefan Wisniewski, got a few first-team reps at center and left guard. And even Chance Warmack gave Brandon Brooks a rest and got a few first-team reps at right guard. Now, it's not meaningful. It doesn't mean, hey, look, the starters are Kelsey and Brandon Brooks. There's no question about those two positions. I still think they'd like Sayamalu to start, but there's a chance that Barber is back in that position. But it tells you what they feel about what they have inside, and they do think all those guys can play and play at a high level.
John McMullen with us, our Eagles insider at Eagles OTAs today. So a lot of optimism, John, about the offensive line, but of course not every play are they able to hold up forever. Sometimes the pocket does break down, and one of the topics brought up today was Carson Wentz's ability to navigate the pocket. What did Frank Reich have to say about Carson's learning how to navigate when the pocket collapses?
Yeah, I mean, that's a process, and that's part of the mechanics, a different part of it that we always talk about. And Frank really got into it about climbing the pocket and how that's what you want to do in the NFL. A lot of quarterbacks get in trouble when they sort of flush left or flush right when there's a pass rush. And generally, you want to climb the pocket, and you want to feel and you want to keep going through your progressions. But there's also what he mentioned is that you can climb too far. So it's sort of, he mentioned 50-50, sort of innate ability to understand what's going on, and also part of it you have to teach and just get better with repetition. And I think a lot of people sometimes forget that Carson Wentz is a very young quarterback entering his second year, and he doesn't have a ton of experience, even though he was lucky enough to play all 16 games. So all of this stuff is still a work in progress.
Yeah, John, and I want to get into we're talking offense over the weekend, kind of a surprise move around the NFL. Of course, John McMullen covers the league nationally. FanRag Sports NFL, read his national columns there at J.F. McMullen. The Jeremy Maclin experiment in Kansas City already done. I mean, is that because he can't play? Is that a monetary thing? Were you surprised that they decided to cut ties with Jeremy Maclin already? And does this have Chip Kelly sitting somewhere kind of saying, see, I told you guys this guy couldn't play?
No, I don't think it's an indication he can't necessarily play. We know the NFL has sort of morphed into this league where, we see it here in Philadelphia. We have so many one-year prove-it deals guys sign. Generally, around the rest of the league, when you hear about these big money contracts, whether they're 5-6 years for these enormous amounts of money, generally they're 2-year deals, and you can get out of them after the second year if you need to. And that's kind of what happened with Jeremy Maclin. He had a really good first year with the Chiefs, and he fell off last year. He had some issues, injury issues. One of his close friends died. And he just made a lot of money. And, hey, unless you're producing those 80-catch, 1,000-yard seasons, you can't afford to pay a guy what he was going to count against the salary cap. So, to me, it was a total salary cap decision. He'll have plenty of suitors. I wouldn't be surprised if he lasts the week because there's so many wide receiver needy teams in this league. He's going to get snapped up and snapped up quickly. And, yeah, he can still play in this league. He's not the 1,300-yard guy he was when he left the Eagles, but he's still a competent NFL receiver.
Also, you wrote about it at 97.3 ESPN.com, John. Tim Jernigan nicked up today at practice, and the Eagles are already kind of thin at that position. You hope it's just that, being nicked up.
Yeah, I think it is. I mean, it was pretty clear he came in with a little bit of an issue because his ankle was heavily taped. And then he must have tweaked it with about really at the end of practice, maybe 5-10 minutes left. And he limped off, and he wasn't carted off or carried off, so he was able to get off himself. But, yeah, it's been an issue, obviously, that position. They signed Gabe Wright, former fourth-round pick in this league. They need bodies because they have issues. Bo Allen, we talked about, is out for the foreseeable future. Elijah Qualls is not here because of the NFL rules and the fact his college is still in session, so he's not allowed to practice. And then Fletcher was missing for a while. And then Tim Jernigan himself was missing last week because of the birth of a child. And now he's a little nicked up. So they need some bodies to have practices at defensive tackle. But the good news is it's very, very early, and hopefully everybody's back. And when Jernigan is completely healthy and Qualls is here and Bo's able to get back on the field, it won't be as big as an issue.
Hey, John, you wrote over the weekend about Patrick Robinson on the defensive side of the ball, and you wrote at 97.3 ESPN.com about why he's an important part of the defense. Does his style fit a Jim Schwartz defense from what you've seen?
Yeah, I think it does. We always talk about Jim Schwartz and what he likes about corners, and it really came to the forefront when the trade with Eric Rowe happened, because Eric was really an understated guy, and whereas Leotis McKelvin and Jalen Mills and Ron Brooks are these, really confident, really boisterous guys, and that's what Jim tends to like. And on the surface, Patrick Robinson is closer to Eric Rowe. He is incredibly understated, to the point where you got to lean in to listen to him speak. He's so soft-spoken. When the Eagles signed him, I'll give you an example, guys. He was not normally they sign players and they have them up at the podium to introduce to the media. Patrick didn't want to do that because he's not comfortable in that type of situation. So from that standpoint, he doesn't seem like a Jim Schwartz kind of guy. But it's not really about being loud, Jim likes. He likes guys who are confident in their abilities, and that's where Robinson fits, because he knows he can play in this league as long as he's healthy. He's a former first-round pick. He's played inside. He's played outside. And he made it clear that he's very comfortable not only doing that but also helping the younger players. So that's the part where he's a fit for what the Eagles want and what the Eagles need.
All right, of course, national NFL columnist, FanRag Sports NFL, Eagles insider for 97.3 ESPN.com, at JF McMullen on Twitter. The Eagles continue OTAs throughout the rest of this week, and then the minicamp, mandatory minicamps next week up there at the NovaCare Center. We got the Eagles covered from all angles right here on the Sports Bash 97.3 ESPN. All right, John, stay dry.
All right, you too, guys. Enjoy OC.